Thank you for tuning in to the World Builders Anvil, episode 264. Sex tips to help you recapture your time.
That's six tips to help you recapture your.
It says sex tips here in the email. Is that a typo?
Yeah, it must be a typo.
I got to tell you, I think my topic's better.
I don't know. We might get sued by one of those magazines on the grocery store shelf. That could be a copyrighted topic.
Fine, we'll do it your way. Sorry, guys. 6 tips to help recapture your time.
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge,
break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the muck of Java and build.
Welcome back. Slightly less excited than normal. It's Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And disappointedly so, I am Michael Miller. I was all geared up for a sex tips episode. You know, I got tons of them. Maybe we do that on like a secondary, like a Patreon episode or something.
Yeah, we'll do like a Patreon episode, and we will.
We should do that for like if we come across something like that's really big like that. Maybe we do like once in a while drop a Patreon episode. Okay. Are you interested in doing something like that?
Yeah,
not all the time. Just a once. In a while
I should probably actually officially start the Patreon before I do that. So.
Okay. Well, if you
with all the kerfluffle right now, I've kind of put it on hold because it's kind of in the news. So.
This is kind of a second episode kind of dedicated to Mark. Mark, I believe we mentioned in one of our prior episodes, had put up a post about some of the difficulties that he was facing in a question and whatever, and time management definitely came up. Mm-hmm. So this is a time management episode.
And we're not sure if Mark actually needs time management or not, but it was definitely a potential that could have been the problem. And I think a lot of times is something I've had to work a lot on because, like most people, I sucked at time management when I started doing this stuff. But when you're working full time and trying to be creative and you have family, you really got to learn how to take care of your time so you have that time to create. And that's key. You know, that's what gets you past NaNoWriMo. That's what does everything. So yeah. So Mark, whether or not you need these, here you go. And really the idea is I just wanted like quick, easy things, right? I'm not going to sit here and go over line by line how to do things, the sort of what they are, why they're important, and a little details, you know, but this is not meant to be like a tutorial kind of episode. It's more meant to give you inspiration. The first tip, which is only valid if you have people in your life, is essential if you're married. If you have roommates, it's probably important too. If you live with your parents, it's actually also probably important, you know, but you need support, you know? So, you know, my thing is you need a win-win goals support agreement. And this is absolutely vital if you have a spouse. There's like no way around it. Especially if there are little ones involved.
I was just going to say that. If you have kids, it is an absolute must.
You know, because you're both juggling commitments that really overlap. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, there are a few things that I would call a win-win because you both need to succeed out of it. You know, you're going to try and recapture some time. You have to offer up the same thing. And, you know, it's not conditioned on what they do. If they want to sit and play video games, if they just want to watch TV by themselves, whatever it is, you cover them, they cover you. You know, that's the basic thing you're going for. And, you know, you want to be supportive in it. So especially if it's creative or they're trying to start a small business or whatever they're trying to do, you want to be supportive in it. Don't judge what it is, though. You know, if you judge, especially negatively, you know, off the bat, you lose people. You know, it's one of the great oddities I see in modern politics. Our country is so divisive right now. And both sides, whenever they start fighting each other, start off by insulting the other side. And it doesn't seem to work to convince anyone on changing their minds. So
shocker.
Try not to do that in your real life. I know people listening to the show is actually smart enough to get that already, but just in case someone else accidentally is listening.
Well, I think you also raise an interesting point there that I'm a big fan of, in that if you're getting somebody, if you're like, okay, well, you're going to give me this time so I can work. So what would you like? And they request a certain amount of time, and they want to do something that you're like, that's ridiculous. Like every now and then, like previously, there would be times where my wife would break my stones about playing video games, and it's like, that's how I'm choosing to spend my spare time. It doesn't matter if what I'm doing is productive or helpful or useful. It's my spare time. It's what I want to do, no matter what that is. So like if she wants to watch, her dumb reality shows, as much as I can't stand them, I will say stuff about the shows all the time, but I if that's how she wants to spend her TV watching time,
attack the show, not the person.
Exactly. So you have to be respectful. So if they're going to give you time to work on your world building, work on your whatever project it is, if you're going to give them back that same amount of time in an agreement, and no matter what they choose to do with it, even if they're not doing anything and they could give you more time to world build, you have to be respectful that let them have that time.
Yep. Another thing that my wife and I have found that's work is we typically have a weekly discussion, not a really long thing, but just like, hey, do you have any appointments that aren't in the calendar? Just to make sure that it's all in there. If for some reason something comes up during a person's time, we try and figure out when that time will move to, just so we're both on the same page and we can both maximally support each other. But it doesn't take very long to do. And, oh, whoops, I forgot to share this appointment with you. You don't realize I have a doctor's appointment or whatever it is. And, it's coming up during your time. Do you mind? I usually, like, if it comes up during one of our times, we actually talk to the other person before we set it. But once a week, going into the week, like on Sunday, we kind of go over just to make sure there's no other problems or no other support that we need for that week. And then finally work on being flexible. Sometimes like doctor's appointments will come up during your time, or something inconvenient will happen, which you'll lose your time. Maybe it'll get shifted to a different part of the week, or maybe there's a week here or there that happens. Be flexible. If you see a trend, which is more than one occurrence of it happening, make sure just to talk to the person and be like, we keep planning stuff during this time. This is the time we have for world building, for writing, for gaming. Let's leave that alone. And most time, if you've been cooperative with them and non-judgmental on them, hopefully they have enough respect for you to reciprocate.
So it's also a matter of not only locking time, but also making priorities.
Yes.
Like you still need to take care of your obligations. You need to make sure that the cat gets fed and the kids, get changed and everything. So
yeah, diapers once a week. No, I'm lying. Don't do that. That would be really bad.
Well, it depends on how disciplined your child is.
Hey, they say typically in the poorer the country, the quicker people diaper train. Where typically in industrialized countries, the average is, I think, 18 months to become diaper trained. And in poor countries, it's more like 9. But that's where they have enough for diapers, but not necessarily a super lot. But the more disposable diapers become.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I imagine, is there something to be said here for like,
a lot of it has to do with being disposable. Cloth diapers. Parents push kids faster to use the potty. And I guess there are ways to do it even before the kid can talk. Obviously, you're talking about 9 months. A lot of kids can't talk effectively at that point. But if you can pay enough attention to their responses, you can figure it out. But that's probably not even an episode that we'll ever go into on the show. Who knows? We might have a world-building reason to go into it sometime. The next one, and it kind of builds off of the one we just went through, Gmail calendars. And I say Gmail calendars, that's what we use. I'm sure any kind of calendar, if you have Apple calendars or whatever you use, I'm sure will work. My wife and I have a calendar that we share with each other. I put in all of my must-do activity stuff on here. So if you have work, block it off and say work. I put my sleep on there. Things that you have to do, especially if they're reoccurring, put them in there. And then I leave the rest of it open for doctor's appointments and for world building time. So we can each get a look, and literally you can just share. You look at both calendars at the same time to see if there are any conflicts. And then the other thing on top of that is when you have, like, say, in a family event where both people are required to go, make sure to share the event with them. So it's calendar.
Yeah, Sarah and I have had such where it's like,
the shared calendars will help a little bit with that, but I don't always think to go into Kristen's calendar to look. Usually we do more of that when it's like a new semester. Her schedule will change every semester, so figuring out what time is available for me or not. I start looking, to her new school calendar schedule. And this next one we actually did a whole episode on. Budget your time. Time is the most valuable commodity that humans have.
Do you happen to remember the episode number for that episode?
Yes, it is episode 133. There'll be a link in these show notes as well, too. It's called How I Found 17 Extra Hours in a Week in 15 Minutes is the name of the episode. And essentially, you only have 168 hours in a week no matter what. Sleep, eating, commuting, working, these are all things that are non-negotiable time that you lose. But literally, especially if you use a calendar, you can figure out how much time you're actually using. And then you also start to see things that might kind of like make you a little sick to your stomach, like how much you're actually watching TV or playing video games a week. And stuff like that, where you go, gee, I actually have 24 hours in a week I could use, and it's all going to television. And at the time I did it, I thought I had no time. But the thing is, some people will budget their money. But to me, budgeting your time is more important because there's only so much time you can free up with money. You can't buy a 25th hour in a day. You can't buy an extra day in a week.
You can buy maid services.
You can buy maid services. You can buy lawn services.
Yep.
So you can actually use income you have to free up some of that time, which Kristen and I have actually gone through and started doing. And as we get more money, we try and outsource more of those things, especially the things we don't like to do, like, stuff in the house, or in the yard. If you have the budget, you can recapture some of that time. But ultimately, you can't buy more time, at least not yet. There's no time machine yet. I'm working on that.
Let me know when you get that down.
Yeah,
because I want to see if it'll be as good as my couple.
And then, pro tip: out of your 168 hours in a week, don't forget to work, sleep, and it's really, there's a lot of research on sleep. 7 to 9 hours for everyone. You will actually get less done if you don't sleep enough.
I would say actually 6 or 5. It depends on the person.
Well, yes, and research shows about 95% of people it is 7 to 9 hours. And the thing is, people are used to operating on less, and they don't realize what they lose in the time that they're awake. You're actually less effective in the time that you're awake. I've gotten more stuff done by sleeping longer. And some people are trained. I know as a soldier, I could operate very easily on little to no sleep, little cat naps here or there through the day, for pretty long periods of time. But I think part of that was maybe youth as well. But the thing is, when you're doing activities, you make more mistakes, you screw up more, and then you spend more time fixing them, even if you're doing like 4 to 6 hours. Really try to get to 7 to 9. And you'll know when you get the number right, because your body will just start waking you up when you won't need an alarm anymore.
See, I always get, that's weird. I mean, I'm probably an exception because
that's what everyone says. Yep. And maybe you are.
Yeah. I've been an insomniac for,
not being able to sleep and needing to sleep are two different things, though.
Well, I know, but like you say, your body will wake you up. Well, my body wakes me up at about 4:30 every morning, regardless of what time I go to bed, which sucks because there are times when I'm just like, well, I went to bed later, I want to sleep later, like Saturday, like it's sometimes hard for me to sleep late on a day that I do have time to sleep late.
Yep.
So.
And I know with my chronic pain issues, a lot of times I wake up when I don't want to. But my body, I can wake up. If I take something, I can sometimes fall back to sleep. Other times, there's nothing you could do in those scenarios. Ultimately, if there are health concerns, but those are something, if you do have those, and I know Michael does, you should seek medical help. Medical help, not necessarily medicinal. And here's another one, an app I like to use.
We're not excluding medicinal, though.
It could be, you get the advice from a professional.
Exactly. Seek a professional.
There's an app I use called Trello, and I put all my projects and stuff into Trello, and I track, and I can attach documents, and it's really simple to set up and track the progress through. I don't know if we've done one on this show, probably not, but check it out. If you've ever used the Kaizen board, it'll be very simple. You'll pick it up really quickly, but you can actually create lists of things like, this is my to-do list. This is my list for things I'm currently working on. These are things on hold. These are things that are completed, so you can actually see the progress. Especially when you're doing bigger activities, you can track it up pretty easily in Trello. It's like a very simple app to use. If you're used to computers, like I didn't have to use any help pages to figure it out. It's pretty much you just take a few minutes, figure it out, and then it's really easy to use from there. But it's simple. It's like using Post-it notes on the wall to track activities you're doing. The next one is daily and task planning. Take some time at the beginning of every day to think about what you're going to do.
I actually really, really like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I will make lists all the time. So yes. I might not get much done if I don't do that. But if I write down like 6 things that don't take a whole lot of time to do, then I will just, okay, what do I need to do? I do that thing, and then I'm done. Cross that off the list, next thing. So it's like, I need to fold this laundry. I need to put these things away. I need to fix this shelf. I need to do this and do that. So you think about all the little things that you have to do. Yep. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's like all these things. But then you organize it as a list. Then you do one thing, knock it off, cross it off, next thing. You end up getting them done in like 2-3 hours. You're all done. You're like, wow, I thought I had all this stuff to do, but it really didn't take a lot of time. Each task was only like 15 minutes.
Yeah. And that's actually one of my tips. Make your tasks no longer than 25 minutes. If they're bigger than that, break them up into chunks. Because one, completing things is a great motivator to do more things.
Absolutely.
And the problem is, if it's like an 8-hour task, it's hard to track where you're at in there. For me, I always like to think what I want to get done today. I'm always really good at getting that done. I'm not necessarily good at getting anything else done. But it's like, so I actually have a list of all of the things I want to do. I could drag stuff over going, okay, I'm working on this right now. So this is the important project thing I'm working on. That won't be a task, but I'll know I have that to work on, where I can kind of go, okay, I got all of the things I have to get done. Let me go work on this other thing right now, because I need to have maps built, or I need to do whatever creatively. But you feel like you have the permission to work on that kind of stuff when I've just knocked off 6 things that I need to get done around the house or with the family. And if there's nothing, that should tell you that you do have time to do that stuff. And now in here too, I want to put a big caveat. I'm not one of those people who say, don't watch TV or don't watch video games. I'm a big believer that you need sometimes to, it's kind of drinking wine when you eat to refresh your palate. You need to do the same thing with your mind. And sometimes clearing your mind, you come up with good ideas to solve problems that you have. And I found, like, when I was working with small business owners, a lot of them would do the same thing, but it was always work, because they're stuck on a problem. It's one of those things. Sometimes you take your mind off of your problems, your creative problems or your work problems. That's when you come up with ideas that fix them. Mm-hmm. So always have a way to take notes close at hand as well too. But be willing and open to hobbies outside of your creative activity, outside of your work activities, and then going back to daily and task planning, like the same way. Whenever I start the day off and I actually write out the task I'm going to get done, essentially my to-do list, and then have that thing that I want to work on when I get done with it, I get my day done. But the other thing I found from years of developing, before I switch my attention to a new task, especially if it's something that takes brain power, if it's not muscle memory, take a few moments to think what you're trying to do. So if you're switching from map making to writing a character description, take a few minutes to think what the character looks like. Get your brain focused on that activity. You have to transition, especially if they're different activities, you have to transition into them. You'll get more done. You'll get it done a lot faster if you take a minute or two just to ask a few questions like, okay, what am I doing here? Okay, I'm going to write a character. If I'm writing a character description, what's the character? What are the things I want to discuss in the description? You start thinking about that, and it gets your mind ready, and you'll punch out like tasks a lot faster. So whenever you switch activities, just take a moment or two to think about what you want to get from it before you start, because you're more likely to get that in one try and not have to oh wait, I forgot this, I didn't do that, and have to go back later on or start over because you screw it up. So always, before your day starts and before you start a new task, just take some time to think about what you want to get done. You'll get so much more done every day. That is the biggest one, and I'll put a picture of this on my I've just upgraded recently, daily journal. Now I don't journal my life and how I feel. Some people do that, and if you're one of those people, this is not that. I have a big drawing pad I keep on my desk where I work. And on that pad, I write out my to-do list. So like I just talking about my daily list, that goes on my pad because I don't want to open up software to look at it. So I'll open up my software, see what I need to do. I'll write it down on this little pad, and I'll start doing stuff. Any activities that come up during the day, oh, husband, could you call these people or could you do that? I write them down on that piece of paper. I will sometimes doodle world building ideas on this piece of paper. It's where my thoughts that are interfering with what I'm doing come into my head. They go onto this piece of paper. As I complete my tasks, I check them off there. If I come up with extra tasks and they're quick, I'll try and knock those out too, or I'll put them into my Trello board later as things to do a different day. But it's just a big drawing pad I use. I used to use a little not a legal pad, but like the smaller version I used to use. But I find I like the big drawing paper better, and I'll just use one piece of paper a day. But that way I don't have to go into my computer software every time I need a new task to do, because the problem is I see all of the other tasks that I want to do as well too, and it starts pulling me in 100 different directions. So once I make the choice, I put it down in one spot, I turn off my notifications, and I start doing stuff. And that's really, I think these are the 6 things I do. They're all simple to implement. Hopefully you don't need more. You always go to facebook.com/groups/Undercroft and ask questions there if you want help on time management stuff.
And if you want sex tips, just hit me up in our closed Facebook group.
I guess he means that literally, so hit him up. But that is actually the same group. You can do either thing there. Feel free. Come on by. Join us. There'll be 3 questions that you have to remember to answer. I'm pretty liberal on the answers, as long as you don't tell me to go F myself, which case I probably wouldn't mind that either. As long as you don't say that you will spam, I'm pretty liberal on the answers. I just want to make sure it's a human being filling the form out. The thing is, being creative means you need time to do it. here's the problem that most people are going to have if they start trying to manage their time at home. You're going to start giving yourself unrealistic expectations of what you can get done. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Think about, that's
Baby
why
steps.
budgeting your time is so important. If you only got 4 hours a week, you can work on stuff. Be realistic. If you're trying to write a novel in 4 hours a week, realize that it's going to take you longer to do than it would someone who has 8 hours a day to work on.
And that's fine. You'll still make the progress. Just understand that, 4 hours.
But don't tell yourself that you're going to get 4 chapters done every week, unless you know that you can punch out 8,000 words in 4 hours. Give yourself time to do the things. And if you're punishing yourself over the types of tasks you give yourself, make them smaller, because you give yourself wins. Wins are momentum. Momentum makes you feel like you're achieving something.
I'm going to say that slower because you said that so quickly.
Okay.
Give yourself wins.
Mm-hmm.
Allow yourself and acknowledge your wins. Sometimes your wins are very small. Sometimes your wins are like, it's a small task, but it's something that you've been putting off, something you haven't done, and then you finally did it. You might beat yourself up and be like, I should have done that months ago. That's my thing. I do that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll beat myself up. It's like, well, I won't give myself the acknowledgement because I'll be like, I should have done this ages ago, and it was such a small task. But it's like, you know what? If you finally did it, you did it. Pat yourself on the back, give yourself the win, smile, encourage yourself, empower yourself to move on to the next win.
I find usually, too, the tasks we put off are things that we're avoiding. And so even if it's small and simple, the fact that you finally did it is meaningful. And I find, too, it's like if I'm lacking confidence, I go to my list, I look for the easiest thing to do, and I do it. And that way I could check something off as succeeded. And it gets the ball rolling. I'm like, okay, I got that done. Let me move on to something a little bit more complicated. Now, there's a lot more you can do with time management than what I'm telling you here. I said, here are the 6 things again. Win-win goals, support agreement, right? So make a support agreement with the people who are that you are involved with on a daily basis. Gmail calendars, share electronic calendars with those people. If nothing else, do it for yourself so you can track when you have open blocks of time and you can choose what to do in that time. Budget your time. Time you have less of than money. Even if you're poor, you have less time than money. And your time is finite. You can go earn more money. You can get a better paying job, which might take you time to do that. But money problems are much easier to solve. And then you can solve some of your time issues, but still you're limited to the number of hours a week that you can get stuff done. 168 total hours, you're nowhere close to that in what you could use to get stuff done in. So budget your time because it is the most precious thing that you have. Use something like Trello, something to track all of the things that you need to get done. So you have a reference point to go grab it and make yourself up a list and go do it. And you don't forget things if you put them all in one spot. Your daily and task planning. Whenever you start a day, think what you want to get done that day. And for your tasks, take a moment to think about what you want to get done in the task before you do it. So the only exception is like if it's muscle memory. Like for Michael to pick up his drill and to do certain types of electrical work, probably take no brain effort. It's probably just him pointing at himself and doing it because he's an electrician and he's done it several times. You know what?
I had a fun thought the other day. The whole concept of 10,000 hours of doing a given task and you're an expert at it. And it made me think about the things that I would like to be really good at, like drawing and playing guitar and, my more creative endeavors. But I got thinking about my profession and then I did some math and I realized that according to that, concept, I am an expert at my profession because I've been doing it for, well over that amount of time.
Well, especially the tasks that you've done that 10,000 hours.
Well, right. Like there are certain tasks that I do. I never question my ability to do that task.
And I know it's a little bit different, but like putting an electrical line from a street to a house, you would probably spend more time thinking about than installing a light fixture.
Yeah, that's actually not that complicated.
Okay, well, that shows what I know about electricians. Okay. Now, and the last one is have a daily journal, a notepad, a piece of paper where the things that come across your brain have a place to rest, so you don't have to go in and out of software during the day while you're getting stuff done. You can, at the end of the day, just kind of go back, anything that you don't have done, you make sure it's in your Trello board. So tomorrow you can kind of look there quickly to start over again. And this really works great for work too. I mean, that's really, when I was doing product management and project management, with software, the same exact stuff. Sometimes very complicated boards, but for your life, they don't need to be that complicated. This is what I need to do. This is what I'm working on. This is on hold, which means for some reason outside of my power, I can't work on it. Like I'm waiting for a response from the 3 electricians before I decide to pick one to hire to come in to do work. That would be on hold and done. I like to leave the done stuff there for a little while so I can see it piling up, and I feel like I'm getting stuff done. That's just my psychology. So, but that's really it. It's a simple episode. I think 6 things, but one last thing: pick one. So this is your world building task.
Pick one tip.
Pick one tip and start doing it.
Start implementing it. Yeah.
Practice it. And people always say 30 days. Realistically, to make something a habit is like 60 to 90. If you look at science, pesky little science, but until it becomes routine enough to where you're doing it without thinking about it, do one and then take another one and do it. If all of these are new ideas to you and you start the 6 new things tomorrow, you're going to give up on all of them. So pick one. The win-win goals support agreement, especially if you're married, is probably the most important one to start with. The time budget would probably be those two.
I was just going to argue the time budget one, because the
time budget one you don't have to repeat unless your schedule changes a lot.
Well, right, but you also don't need to make an agreement to work on a time budget.
That is true. That is true.
So
those are the 2 ones I would try and get first, but layer them in one at a time. And so the real world task is just take some time, make these changes. You'll get benefits from each step. So you'll get benefits from each step, which will give you a little bit more time. But once you're comfortable with doing something, add something else, and you don't necessarily have to wait 60 or 90 days. But make sure it just becomes routine to do. And the time budget is a nice one. Like my wife will have to redo hers because, as like a college professor, her schedule will change a lot semester to semester. And so the amount of time she uses changes. But even that, if it's like the time of day you work changes, that doesn't change the time budget if it's 8 hours a day. It's just you're going from first shift to second shift. But if the number of hours you're working changes or you have radical changes in your life, it's good to revisit that one. But do it. And like, if you've ever done a money budget, you're going to realize when you do it, you're wrong.
I
forgot about this thing.
I forgot that concept. That's actually a really good point to mention.
So go back, when you do like a new activity on a time budget, just to make sure that it's accounted for. Because there's certain things you have to do, and some of them you just do without thinking. So keep that in mind. So do you have any parting tips for people?
No, I think it's very well covered.
Okay. Everyone have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.gardul.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.
So you like my intro?
Yes.
I thought you might like that.